If you don't like it, you can leave. Those words came out of my son's mouth like nothing, like someone commenting on the weather, as if he hadn't just plunged a knife into my chest. And the worst part wasn't the words. The worst part was that my daughter-in-law, Denise, smiled as she tucked the bills from my Social Security check into her purse. My Social Security, my money, my house. My name is Mary Ann Thompson. I am 51 years old, and what I am about to tell you is the story of how my own son threw me out of my home without knowing that the house was never truly his. It all started 6 months earlier, on a Sunday in October. Robert arrived with 2 large suitcases and a woman wearing stilettos inside the house. Denise, 28 years old, red nails, perfect smile. "Mum, it's temporary," my son told me while dropping the suitcases in the living room. "Just a couple of months while we save up for our own place." I opened the door. I opened my fridge. I opened my whole life. "This is your home, my son. It always has been." Robert hugged me. Denise gave me 2 kisses on the cheek and said I was a sweetheart of a mother-in-law. I should have seen the signs from that first day. The first few weeks were strange. Denise rearranged my furniture to make it look more modern. She put my wedding photo away in a box because the frame was too old. She tossed my floral curtains because nobody uses those anymore, mother-in-law. I kept quiet. You don't want trouble in your own house. Robert worked late, or so he said, and I was left alone with her in the afternoons. Denise would watch television in the living room, with her feet on my coffee table, eating from my dishes without washing them afterwards. "Mother-in-law, can you grab me a glass of water?" she would ask, without taking her eyes off the screen. And I would go, because she was my daughter-in-law, because she was my son's wife. But something inside me started to clench up like a knot. One day, I found my memory box open. The letters my mother wrote to me before she died were scattered over my bed. "Oh, mother-in-law, I'm sorry," Denise said when I confronted her. "I was looking for a place to keep my shoes, and I thought that box was empty." Empty. 30 years of memories. Empty. The months passed, and the house stopped smelling like cinnamon and gingerbread. Now it smelled of expensive perfume and something darker, of stripping, of silent invasion. I kept cooking, cleaning, paying the electricity, the water, the gas. Robert no longer asked me how I was. Denise no longer pretended to be courteous. And then came that Tuesday in April that I will never forget. I had gone to the bank that morning. I needed to withdraw money for my blood pressure medication. But when I tried to use my card, the ATM told me there were insufficient funds. "There must be a mistake," I said. There was no mistake. I came home with my stomach tied up in a knot. I opened the door and there was Denise, sitting at the dining table, with a wad of bills on the table, and my debit card in her hand. My entire Social Security check, withdrawn, without asking me. "Denise," I said, and my voice came out calmer than I felt. "What did you do?" She didn't even flinch. "I took out this month's money, mother-in-law. We need to talk." Robert appeared from the kitchen with a beer in his hand. My son, the boy I held in my arms, the one who cried on my lap when his father abandoned us, the one who swore he would always take care of me. "Mum, sit down," he ordered me. I sat down. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would jump out of my chest. "Look, Mum," Robert began, and his voice sounded different, hard, cold. "Denise and I have been talking. We've been here for 6 months, and you haven't wanted to discuss the money issue." "What money, Robert? This is your house, it always was." Denise let out a dry laugh. "Mother-in-law, let's be honest. This house has 3 bedrooms, a living room, a large kitchen. We live here, We take up space. We use electricity, water, gas. Someone has to pay for that. I looked at my son, waiting for him to say something, to stop her, to remember. But Robert just drank from his beer and nodded. It's fair, Mum. You have to cooperate if you're going to live here with us. Live here with them. In the house I bought with my own 2 hands. In the house where I raised that ungrateful son. So we decided, Denise continued, while putting the bills in her fake Louis Vuitton bag, that your social security check will cover the household expenses. Consider it the rent for living here. It's the fairest thing. The silence that followed was so heavy you could touch it. And what if I don't agree? I asked. Robert put the beer on the table with a dry thud. He looked me straight in the eyes and said those words that still burn inside me. If you don't like it, you can leave. Nobody is forcing you to stay. Denise smiled, a triumphant, victorious smile. I stayed sitting there, looking at this man I no longer recognized as my son. And then, for the first time in 6 months, I also smiled. I stood up slowly, very slowly. I walked to my bedroom without saying a single word. I heard them laughing in the living room. You finally put a stop to her, Denise said. It was necessary, Robert replied. It was time she understood how things are. I opened the drawer of my nightstand. I took out a small, rusty key hanging from a thin chain. That key had been stored there for 25 years, since the day I signed the papers, since the day I made the most difficult decision of my life, the decision I never thought I would have to use. I put the key in my pocket. I took a deep breath and went back to the living room. They were still laughing, celebrating, and I was still smiling. Because there are things that children don't know, things that mothers keep silent about for years, hoping never to have to reveal them. But that day, that cursed Tuesday in April, I understood that silence can also be complicity. And I was no longer going to be complicit in my own humiliation. The key felt heavy in my pocket like a promise of justice. Sometimes we trust too much in those we shouldn't. Have you also been disappointed by someone you loved? Tell me your story in the comments. I want to read them. There are moments in life when one needs to remember how they got there. That night, after Robert and Denise locked themselves in their room, my guest room, I stayed sitting in the kitchen with a cup of chamomile tea in my hands. The key was still in my pocket, burning like a live coal. But before I tell you what I did, I need you to understand who I was, who Mary Ann was before she became the bothersome mother-in-law, before she was the mother who was in the way, because there was a time when this house smelled different. I was 23 years old when I met Jim. He worked at his father's hardware store, and I sold baked goods at the local market. It was 1997, and the world seemed simpler then. Jim had big hands and an easy laugh. He won me over with sweet words and promises of a home of our own. You'll see, Mary Ann, he would tell me as we walked through the park on Sundays. We're going to have a house with a yard, a place where our kids can run barefoot. We got married in February of '98. Robert was born a year later. At first, we lived in a small apartment near the bus station. 2 rooms, a shared bathroom, walls so thin we could hear when the neighbours argued. But it was ours. We were happy. Jim worked 12 hours a day. I took care of Robert, and in the afternoons, I made cornbread to sell in the neighbourhood. $5 a pound. That's how we saved penny by penny for the down payment on a house. Robert was a beautiful boy, chubby, with rosy cheeks, who laughed at everything. He liked to sit in the kitchen while I kneaded dough and would ask me to make him tiny pieces of cornbread, like the real ones, Mum. When we're big, my son would say to me with those enormous eyes, I'm going to buy you a really nice house with a garden so you can plant roses. I would kiss his forehead and tell him we were already rich, because we had him. But life has cruel ways of teaching you that happiness doesn't stay put. Robert was 5 years old when Jim started coming home late, smelling of perfume that wasn't mine, with excuses that were increasingly absurd. I had to help a client. The car broke down. I stayed talking with the guys. I kept quiet. You keep quiet about many things when you have a small child and a paycheck that barely covers expenses. Until one Saturday morning, while Robert was playing with his toy cars in the living room, Jim packed clothes into a suitcase and told me, "I met someone else, Mary Ann. I'm sorry." Just like that, without drama, like someone cancelling a dentist appointment. "And Robert?" I asked. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I only asked about my son. "I'll send you money," Jim lied, "but I need to start my life over." He left that same day. Robert asked about his dad for weeks. I told him he was working far away, that he would be back soon. He never came back. The money he promised never arrived. The calls became sporadic until they disappeared. Jim started his life over with a younger woman in Miami. They had 2 daughters. Robert stopped existing for him, and I was left alone with a 5-year-old boy and a baked goods vendor's salary. But here comes the part my son never knew. 2 years after Jim left, Mr. Peterson, the owner of the department store where I had started working, called me into his office. "Mary Ann," he said, "I've been watching you. You are hard-working, honest, responsible. I have a proposition." Mr. Peterson did not have children. His wife had died young. He lived alone in a large house in the San Gabriel neighborhood, a house that felt too big, too quiet for him. "I need someone trustworthy," he explained, "someone to look after the house when I'm away, to keep it alive." He offered me a deal. If I worked for him for 25 years, at the store and looking after the house when he traveled, the house would be mine in the end. "But there's one condition," he told me. "No one can know. Not your family, not your son. This stays between you and me, and the papers we're going to sign with the notary." I was 28 years old, had a 7-year-old son, and no visible future. I signed those papers on a Tuesday in November of 2001. For 25 years, I took care of that house as if it were mine, because I knew that someday it would be. I watered the plants in the yard, polished the hardwood floors, kept the windows clean so the sun could come in. Robert grew up within those walls without knowing the truth. He thought Mr. Peterson let me borrow the house out of pity, out of charity. I never told him otherwise. Why didn't I tell him? Because I was afraid. Afraid that something would go wrong. Afraid that Mr. Peterson would change his mind. Afraid of creating hopes in my son that would then be broken like all the promises his father made him. Mr. Peterson died 3 years ago. The day of his funeral, the notary handed me the deed. The house was mine, legally, completely, irrevocably mine. I cried that day. I cried for the good man who gave me what my husband never could. I cried for the 25 years of quiet work. I cried out of relief, but I still didn't tell Robert. He thought I had inherited the house from Mr. Peterson for being his loyal employee. I let him believe it. Why complicate things? My son left to live on his own at 23 years old. He got a job at a logistics company. I stayed in my house, tending to my rose bushes, drinking my hot coffee in the mornings, living the peace I had earned. Until that Sunday in October, when Robert knocked on my door with suitcases and a woman in red stilettos. That night in the kitchen, with the cup of tea cooling in my hands, I remembered all that. I remembered the 23-year-old girl who sold baked goods. I remembered the single mother who needed cornbread to feed her son. I remembered the 25 years of silent work. I remembered every dollar saved, every sacrifice, every sleepless night, wondering if Robert would have enough for school. And I remembered the promise I made myself the day I received that deed. No one is going to take away what took me a lifetime to achieve. No one, not even my own son. I got up from the table, washed the cup, and put it away. I turned off the kitchen lights. Tomorrow I would go and do what I had to do. Tomorrow I would begin to recover my dignity. As I tell all this, I wonder where you are listening to me. Write the name of your city in the comments. The next morning I woke up before dawn. There are certain pains that don't let you sleep, that keep you awake while you stare at the ceiling and wonder at what point everything went wrong. I got up, put on my blue robe, the one Robert gave me years ago when he still called me Mummy, and went to the kitchen to make coffee. The house was silent, a different silence than before. Before it was a silence of peace, now it was a silence of cold war. I put the water on to boil and took out the coffee blend that I always liked to prepare on Wednesdays. Cinnamon, brown sugar, that aroma that reminded me of my mother, of Sundays in her kitchen, of when the world was simpler. I heard footsteps in the hallway. Robert appeared, yawning, still in his pajamas. His hair was messy, and he had that just woken up face that reminded me of when he was 10 years old and came down for breakfast with eyes puffy from sleep. "Good morning, Mum," he mumbled as he sat at the table. For a second, just a second, I thought everything had been a nightmare, that yesterday's words hadn't happened, that my son was still my son. "Good morning, honey," I said to him. "Do you want coffee?" "Yes, please." I poured him a cup. He took it with both hands, as he always had since he was a child. He took a long sip and sighed. "It's good," he said. "Thanks." We stayed silent. I waited. I waited for him to say something, to apologize, to explain that he had been stressed yesterday, that Denise had pressured him, that he hadn't meant to hurt me like that. But Robert just drank his coffee looking out the window. "Honey," I started carefully. "About yesterday," he raised his hand like someone stopping traffic. "Mum, we already talked about it. There's nothing more to discuss." "But Robert, that's my social security. It's all I have." He put the cup down on the table with more force than necessary. "And this is the house where we all live, Mum. Or what? Do you expect us to live for free? For Denise and me to pay for everything while you save your money?" Those words hit me like ice water. "I pay for the electricity," I said slowly. "I pay for the water. I pay for the gas. I buy the food." "That was before, Mum. When you lived alone, now there are more of us. Expenses went up." "And why didn't you tell me? Why did you steal my card?" Robert suddenly stood up. His chair scraped against the floor. "Nobody stole anything from you. Denise took out the money because you didn't want to cooperate. Because every time we tried to talk about it, you changed the conversation. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry." "Cooperate? In my own house?" "Robert, this house is mine," I said, and my voice trembled. "I earned it. I maintained it all these years. You lived in your apartment, and now you come here to tell me I have to pay to be in my own home." He looked at me with an expression I had never seen on him. Cold, distant, as if I were an annoying stranger. "Mum, Mr. Peterson lent you the house. It was charity. It's not like you bought it yourself." That word went through me like a nail. Charity. My son thought everything I had was out of pity, out of compassion from a lonely old man, not because of work, not because of effort, not because of 25 years of lifting boxes, cleaning floors, taking care of a house that wasn't mine until it was. "Charity?" Robert, I tried again, but he was already walking towards the door. I have to get ready for work, and you should also think about getting something. You're not that old anymore to stay home all day. He left. I stayed standing there in the kitchen, with the coffee maker still hot and my heart in pieces. When? When exactly had my son turned into that? I tried to remember. I searched my memory for some moment, some sign that would tell me when he started to change, and then I saw it. Denise. Ever since she arrived, Robert started seeing me differently. Before, he called me 3 times a week, just to say hello. He came for lunch on Sundays and helped me with the yard. He asked about my medication, my blood pressure, if I needed anything. But after Denise, the calls spaced out. Visits became obligations. Conversations became awkward. I remembered one afternoon, 2 months after they moved in, when I heard voices in the bedroom. I was walking down the hall with the clean laundry when I heard her. Robert, your mother treats you like you're still a child. You're 32 years old. It's time you set boundaries. That's just how she is, Danny. She's always been overprotective. Not overprotective. Controlling. Don't you see? She makes you feel guilty for everything. Oh, honey, don't worry about me. Oh, honey, I'll take care of it. She is manipulating you. I kept going that day. I didn't want to hear more. I thought they were just couple things, normal friction. But it wasn't friction. It was poison, drop by drop, word by word. Denise had been poisoning him against me for months. I drank my cold coffee in one gulp. It no longer tasted like cinnamon. It tasted like ash. I went to my room and opened the drawer where I kept the key again. I took it out. I held it in my hand like someone holding a weapon, because that's what it was. A weapon. The last defense of a mother who was losing her son. But it wasn't time yet. I still had a small hope that Robert would react, that he would see what was happening, that he would remember who I was, who I had always been to him. I put the key away again. I would wait a little longer, just a little longer. That afternoon, when I returned from the grocery store with the bags of groceries, paid for with the little cash I had left after Denise emptied my account, I found the living room reorganized. My new curtains, the ones I had just hung last week, were thrown on the couch. Denise was measuring the window with a tape measure. "Oh, mother-in-law, good thing you're here," she said without turning to look at me. "I'm going to buy modern curtains. These ones you have look like they belong to a grandma." Look like they belong to a grandma. I was 51 years old. "Denise, I bought those curtains a week ago. They cost me $30. She shrugged. "Well, I'll buy better ones. Don't worry, you'll love them." She didn't ask me. She didn't consult me. She would simply do it, in my house, with my money, or with the money she considered to be theirs now. "Where's Robert?" I asked. "He went out with some friends. He'll be back late." So I was alone with her, in my own house, watching her dismantle everything I had built. That night, while I was having a solitary dinner in the kitchen of some refried beans and cornbread, I heard Denise laughing from the living room. She was talking on the phone with someone. "Yes, girl, almost there. We have her where we want her. She's paying for everything without complaining. No, she's not going to leave. Where is she going to go? She has nothing. Just this house they gave her out of pity. Give it a couple more months and we'll be able to—" I got up without making a sound and went to my room. I didn't sleep that night, because I understood something terrible. This wasn't just contempt. This was a plan. I still wonder if I did the right thing. And you? What would you have done in my place? The days that followed were the longest of my life. I kept doing everything as always. I got up early, made breakfast, cleaned the house, did the laundry, as if nothing had changed. as if my hands weren't trembling every time I saw Denise sitting at the dining table, checking her phone with her red nails shining under the light, as if I hadn't heard that conversation. Give it a couple more months and we'll be able to… Be able to what? That question haunted me day and night. I tried to convince myself that I had misunderstood, that maybe I was wrong, that perhaps Denise was talking about something else, about her own plans, her own life. But deep down, I knew the truth. A mother always knows. On Friday morning, Robert left early for work without breakfast. Denise stayed at the house. Lately, she hardly ever went out. She stayed in her pajamas until noon, watching series on television, eating from my pots without even reheating the food. I was in the yard watering my rose bushes when she came out. "Mother-in-law, I need to talk to you." I turned around. Denise had a folder in her hands, a blue folder I hadn't seen before. "Tell me," I replied, and my voice sounded firmer than I felt. She sat on the iron chair my mother had given me years ago. She crossed her legs and opened the folder with calculated movements. "Look, I've been doing the math," she began, "and the situation is not sustainable." "What situation?" "The household expenses, mother-in-law. Your social security isn't enough." I felt something tighten in my chest. "Denise, my social security has always been enough for everything. I've lived here for over 20 years and I never lacked anything." She smiled, that smile that was already making my skin crawl. "Sure, when you lived alone. But now there are 3 of us. Electricity consumption went up. Water too. Food. Gas. Everything." She took some papers out of the folder, receipts, numbers marked with red marker. "Look, here's the electricity bill, $400. The water, $120. The gas, $80. This month's food, about $600. And that's not counting unexpected costs, $1,200. She was saying that the expenses were $1,200 a month. My Social Security check was $850. "Denise, those numbers can't be right. The electricity bill has never gone over $150. She pushed the papers towards me. "Well, now it has. Check them yourself." I took the receipts with trembling hands. And then I saw it. The electricity bill had the correct name, but the consumption was absurd. Appliances I didn't own appeared. High-capacity front-load washer, dryer, 2 air conditioners. I didn't have a dryer. I didn't have air conditioners. "This is not for this house," I said. "It is for this house, mother-in-law. We installed them last month. Didn't you notice?" I was stunned. "You installed air conditioners without asking me?" "Robert and I decided it. It was too hot. It was necessary." "And who paid for that?" Denise closed the folder slowly. "We took out a loan that we now have to pay monthly. That's why we need you to cooperate more." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Denise, you cannot make decisions like that in my house without consulting me." She stood up from the chair. Her expression changed. She was no longer smiling. "Look, mother-in-law, let's put our cards on the table. I know this house was given to you. I know you didn't pay a single dollar for it. Mr. Peterson left it to you out of pity because you were his employee. But that doesn't mean it's yours. It means you were lucky." Every word was a blow. "And now Robert and I are here," she continued. "We are family. We are your only family. Or do you have anyone else?" Silence. "Exactly," she said. "You don't have anyone. So you can keep fighting about your utility bills and your ugly curtains. Or you can accept that things have changed, that you are no longer alone, that now you have to share." She turned around and went into the house, leaving me standing there with the fake receipts in my hands. That night, When Robert arrived, I waited for him in the living room. "Honey, we need to talk." He sighed as if I were a spoiled child. "Now what, Mum?" "Denise showed me some receipts. She says the expenses went up a lot, that you installed air conditioners and a dryer without telling me." Robert loosened his tie and slumped onto the couch. "Yes, Mum. We needed them. What's the problem?" "The problem's that I didn't authorize those expenses. The problem's that loan is not mine. The problem's that this is my house." He looked at me with that new expression that I hated, that expression of annoyance. "Mum, please, let's not start the same thing again. Denise is right. It's time for you to accept that you don't live alone anymore, that we are a family and families share." "But Robert—" "But nothing, Mum. I'm tired. I had a rough day at work. Can we save the drama for another day?" He got up and went to his room without having dinner. I stayed sitting there on the armchair I had bought 10 years ago, in the living room I had painted with my own hands, in the house that was mine. And for the first time in my life, I felt like an intruder. The following days were worse. Denise started treating me as if I were a visitor, the intruder. "Mother-in-law, could you wash this?" she would ask me, throwing her dirty clothes at me. "Mother-in-law, we ran out of dish soap. Go buy some." "Mother-in-law, don't make so much noise in the mornings. Robert needs to sleep." And I obeyed. Why? Why did I allow it? Because I was afraid. Afraid of losing my son forever. Afraid of being completely alone. Afraid that if I confronted them too hard, they would leave, and I would never see Robert again. So I kept quiet, lowered my head, did what they asked. I became the maid in my own house. One afternoon, while cleaning the bathroom they used and never cleaned, I found a shoebox under the sink. I opened it. Inside were papers, lots of papers, credit applications, all in my name, credit cards, 3, all in my name, and a notary document with my signature. But I hadn't signed anything. I sat on the cold bathroom floor, my hands trembling. The signature was good, very good, but it wasn't mine. They had forged it. I heard footsteps in the hallway. I quickly put everything back in the box and put it back under the sink. I left the bathroom as if nothing had happened. Denise was in the hallway looking at me. "What were you doing in there for so long, mother-in-law?" "Cleaning," I said. "It was very dirty." She looked at me intently, for one long, eternal second. Then she smiled. "Thanks, mother-in-law. You're a sweetheart." I couldn't close my eyes that night, because now I knew everything. They didn't just want my social security, they wanted my house, and they were willing to steal it. As I tell all this, I wonder where you are listening to me. Write the name of your city in the comments. The following days were a silent nightmare. I walked through my own house like a thief, afraid to make noise, afraid to look too closely, afraid that Denise would notice that I knew, because now I knew. I knew they had forged my signature. I knew they had opened lines of credit in my name. I knew that all this was a carefully designed plan to take away the only thing I had. But I needed more proof. I needed to understand how deep the deception went. On Tuesday morning, when Robert left for work and Denise went out to the hair salon, finally I had the house to myself for 2 hours. 2 hours to search. I went straight to their room, my former guest room that now smelled of that sweet, cloying perfume Denise wore. The walls I had painted pale yellow were now covered with pictures of the two of them, as if this house were theirs, as if I were the one who didn't belong. I opened the closet carefully. Expensive clothes, too expensive for what Robert earned. Designer shoes, bags that cost more than my social security for 3 months. Where was this money coming from? I checked the drawers. Makeup, jewelry, nothing important. Until I got to the last drawer of the nightstand. There it was. Another folder, this time black. I pulled it out with trembling hands and opened it on the bed. Oh my God. Bank statements, 3 different accounts, all in my name, all with huge negative balances, a credit card with a debt of $48,000, another with $32,000, a third with $25,000, more than $100,000 of debt. In my name. I kept checking. There were more papers. A personal loan for $75,000. Approved. Deposited into an account that wasn't mine. Another loan for $50,000. Also approved. And at the bottom of the folder, the worst of all, a mortgage application on the house. My house. The application was pending. Application date, 2 weeks ago. Amount requested, $800,000. There was a handwritten note in Denise's handwriting. When the mortgage comes through, we'll pay off everything and go to Maui. She can't do anything without the original papers. We'll make her think it's for renovations, and we'll sign everything with Rigo's cousin at the notary. I felt the floor open beneath my feet. Robert's cousin, Frank, the one who worked at a notary office, the one who had always been a little shady, according to my sister. They were going to use contacts to forge documents, to mortgage my house, to take out the money, to leave and stick me with the debts, with the mortgage, with nothing. I sat down on the bed because my legs wouldn't hold me up anymore. How long had they been planning this? Since when? Since before they knocked on my door that Sunday in October. I heard a car outside. My heart skipped a beat. I quickly put everything back in the folder. I put it in the drawer exactly as it was. I closed the nightstand. I left the room. I reached the kitchen just as the front door opened. It was Denise. She came in carrying bags from an expensive department store. More clothes, more shoes, more things bought with money that wasn't hers. With my money, with my credit, with my name. "Oh, mother-in-law, good thing you're here," she said, dropping the bags on the sofa. "I need you to do me a favor." I looked at her without saying anything, trying to control my breathing, trying not to scream everything I had just discovered. "I have to go to a notary tomorrow to sign some papers. It's a procedure for Robert's work. I need you to come with me as a witness." There it was, the moment they had been preparing. They were going to take me to sign the mortgage, right in front of me, making me believe it was a work procedure. "What kind of papers?" I asked, and my voice came out calmer than I expected. "Oh, I don't know exactly. Something about taxes. You know how those things are. Just boring paperwork. But they need a family member to be present." A lie. Everything was a lie. "What time?" I asked. "At 11 o'clock in the morning, at the notary office on Main Street, number 33. Robert's cousin's notary office." "All right," I said. "I'll be there." Denise smiled, that triumphant smile I knew so well. "Thanks, mother-in-law. I knew we could count on you. You're the best." She went to her room with the bags. I heard her laughing, talking on the phone. "Yes, girl. Everything gets signed tomorrow. She doesn't suspect anything. I told you it was super easy. A silly old woman who does everything you ask." A silly old woman. I was 51 years old, and I wasn't silly. That night, when Robert arrived, he was in a good mood, a rare thing in recent weeks. "Mum, did Danny tell you that you have to go to the notary tomorrow?" "Yes, honey, she told me." "Perfect. It's important that you go, okay? Don't miss it." He looked me in the eyes, and for a second, just a second, I saw something in his look. Guilt? Doubt? remorse. But it disappeared as quickly as it came. "I won't miss it," I told him. He nodded and went to have dinner. I stayed in the living room looking out the window. The night was dark, starless, as if even the sky knew something terrible was about to happen. I went to my room. I opened the drawer, took out the rusty key. This time I didn't put it away. I hung it around my neck on the thin chain. I felt it cold against my skin. Tomorrow they thought I would sign the papers, that I would hand over my house without a fight, that I would let them steal everything I had worked for 25 years. But I also had a plan I had been keeping since the day I received the original deed. A plan I never thought I would have to use against my own son. I opened my closet and took out an old shoebox. Inside, wrapped in plastic, were the original documents of the house. The deed in my name. Signed, sealed, completely legal. And one more document. A will that Mr. Peterson had me sign years ago. A will where he left proof that the house was payment for services rendered for 25 years. Not an inheritance, not a gift. A legal payment, with his signature, with witnesses, everything in order. And there was a letter, written by Mr. Peterson 2 months before he died. "Mary Ann Thompson, if someday someone tries to take this house from you, use this letter. In it, I explain that you were more than my employee. You were my friend, my family. And this house is yours by right, not by charity. Don't let anyone take away what you earned with your work and your dignity." Signed, Albert Peterson. Tears rolled down my cheeks as I read that letter for the 10th time. Mr. Peterson had known. Somehow he had known that someday I would need to protect myself, even from my own flesh and blood. I put the documents in my purse. Tomorrow I would take them with me. And when it was time to sign at that fake notary office, I would take out my own papers and show my son and that woman that Mary Ann Thompson was no fool, that mothers also know how to defend themselves, even if it costs them their heart. I still wonder if I did the right thing. And you? What would you have done in my place? The morning of Wednesday dawned grey. I hadn't slept. I stayed sitting on my bed all night with the purse on my lap. Inside, the documents that would prove the truth. Inside, my only defense. At 7 o'clock in the morning, I heard movement in the house. Denise and Robert were already up. I heard them talking quietly in the kitchen. Nervous laughter. The sound of the coffee maker. I got up, showered, and put on my navy blue dress, the one I wore for important occasions. I carefully combed my hair. I put on the pearl earrings my mother left me. If I was going to confront my son, I would do it with dignity. I left my room at 8:30 o'clock. Denise was in the living room, putting on makeup in front of a mirror. She was wearing a tight red dress and high heels, as if she were going to a party, not to steal a house. "Good morning, mother-in-law," she said without looking at me. "Are you ready?" "Yes." "Perfect. Robert left early for work, but we'll meet him there, right at the notary office. We're leaving in half an hour." Half an hour. 30 minutes before they tried to take everything from me. I had some pancakes with coffee for breakfast. Every bite was hard to swallow. My stomach was burning with nerves. At 10:20 o'clock, Denise called me. "Let's go, mother-in-law. We can't be late." We got into her car, a white Jetta that I knew they had bought with one of the fake loans in my name. Another charge of $20,000 at some finance company. On the way, Denise was singing, humming songs from the radio, happy, relaxed, as if she wasn't about to destroy my life. "Nervous, mother-in-law?" she asked me at a traffic light. "A little," I lied. "Don't worry, it's just signing some papers. A 15-minute thing, that's it." 15 minutes to lose everything. We arrived at the notary office at 10:55 o'clock, an old building on Main Street, limestone facade, large windows. The sign read, Public Notary Number 33, Frank O'Connor, Robert's cousin. We went inside. The receptionist led us to a small waiting room. Walls lined with dark wood, framed university diplomas, everything designed to inspire confidence, so people would sign without reading. Robert was already there, sitting on a leather armchair, dressed in a suit. He looked nervous. He looked guilty. "Hello, Mum." He greeted me without getting up. "Hello, honey." Denise sat next to him. She took his hand. She whispered something in his ear. He nodded. I sat across from them with my purse on my lap, my heart pounding so hard I thought everyone in the room would hear it. At 11 o'clock sharp, a man came out of one of the offices. Frank, Robert's cousin. I recognized him from the photos. 40-something years old, moustache, fake smile. "Good morning, Thompson family." He greeted us in a professional voice. "Come in, please." We went into his office, a large desk, 3 chairs facing him, perfectly organized papers. "Well," Frank began as he sat down, "as I explained to Robert and Denise, today we are going to formalize the mortgage loan application on the property located at Washington Street, number 456, San Gabriel neighborhood. My house. The owner is Mrs. Mary Ann Thompson," he continued, looking at me. "She is the title holder of the property according to the records we have here. Is that correct?" "Yes," I said. "Perfect. And your son Robert and your daughter-in-law Denise will be the beneficiaries of the loan, which will be used for improvements to the property. Do you all agree?" Denise and Robert immediately nodded. I didn't say anything. Frank pulled out a thick folder. He began to explain the terms of the loan. $800,000, 20-year term, interest rate of 12%. Numbers that I knew would never be used for improvements, numbers that they would take with them to Maui. "I need the 3 of you to sign here," Frank said, pointing to some lines at the bottom of several documents. "First, Mrs. Mary Ann as the owner, then Robert and Denise as the applicants." He pushed the papers towards me. He handed me a pen. Everyone was looking at me. "Do you have any questions, Mrs. Thompson?" Frank asked with that corrupt notary's smile. I took the pen. I held it over the first document, and then I spoke. "Yes, I have a question." The silence became dense. "Tell me," Frank said, and his smile wavered a little. "Did you review the original documentation of the property?" Frank blinked. "Yes, of course. We have a certified copy of the deed here." "A copy?" "Yes, ma'am. A certified copy is sufficient for this procedure." I opened my purse slowly. I took out the documents I had kept all night. "That's odd," I said in a calm voice, "because I have the original deed right here." I placed the document on the desk, the yellowed paper with the official seals, the signature of the notary who registered it 25 years ago, my full name. Mary Ann Thompson, sole owner. Frank turned pale. "Mom, what are you doing?" Robert asked. "I'm doing what I should have done months ago, my son. I'm defending what is mine." I took out the second document, Mr. Peterson's will. "This," I said, "is the will of Mr. Albert Peterson, the man who employed me for 25 years, the man who bought this house and assigned it to me as payment for professional services rendered." Frank took the document with trembling hands. He began to read it. "It says clearly here," I continued, "that the house was a legal transaction, not an inheritance, not a gift of charity. A payment, registered before a notary, with witnesses, everything legal." "Mum, What are you talking about? Robert stood up from his chair. That house was a gift. Mr. Peterson left it to you because you were his employee? No, Robert. I earned that house, with 25 years of work, with every day cleaning floors, with every night taking care of a property that wasn't mine until it was. That house is mine by right, not out of pity. Denise also stood up. Her face had lost all trace of a smile. Mother-in-law, you're exaggerating. We just want to help. We just want to make improvements. Improvements? I interrupted her. And for the first time in months, my voice sounded loud, firm, angry. Do you think I'm so foolish that I don't know what you're doing? I took out the third document, the bank statements I had found in their room. This, I said, throwing them onto the desk, are the credit cards you opened in my name without my permission. $100,000 of debt that I didn't incur, loans that I didn't ask for, all with my forged signature. The silence was absolute. Mother-in-law, I don't know what you're talking about, Denise began. Don't lie to me, I shouted. And it was the first time I had shouted in 6 months. I found the folder in your room. I saw the note you wrote. When the mortgage comes through, we'll go to Maui. I know everything. Denise took a step back. Robert looked at me as if I had gone crazy. Frank cleared his throat uncomfortably. Mrs. Thompson, if what you are saying is true, we are facing a case of fraud. I cannot proceed with this transaction. You won't proceed, I said. Because there is no transaction. Because this house is not going to be mortgaged. Because I am not going to sign anything. I turned to my son. Robert, look at me. He looked up. There were tears in his eyes. Is it true? I asked him. Were you really willing to steal from me, to leave me on the street? Your own mother? Mum, It wasn't like that. Denise said you would be fine, that you could rent something small, that you didn't need so much space. And you believed her. The tears started rolling down my cheeks. You believed her and not your own mother. Robert opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Denise grabbed his arm. Robert, let's go. Your mother is crazy. She's making everything up. He didn't move. My son, I said with a broken voice. I raised you alone. I worked 30 years to give you a roof over your head, to put you through school, to feed you. I never asked for anything in return. I only asked that you love me, that you respect me. And you decided to believe a woman you've known for a year, who has treated me like trash since she arrived, who planned to steal everything from me. Robert began to cry. I didn't want to. She said it was for the best, that you didn't need the house, that you were too old to maintain it. Every word was a dagger. I'm 51 years old, Robert. I'm not dead. I'm not useless. And that house is mine. I wiped my tears. I put my documents back in my purse. I'm not going to report you, I said, because you are my son, and because even though you betrayed me, I'm not like you. I walked towards the door. But I want you to know something, my son. As of today, you two are no longer welcome in my house. You have 3 days to take your things and find another place. Mum, you can't kick us out, Robert shouted. I turned around. I looked him in the eyes. You told me that if I didn't like it, I could leave. Remember? Well, now I'm telling you the same thing. If you don't like it, you can leave. I left that notary office with my head held high. Outside, the sun had come out from behind the clouds, and for the first time in months, I could breathe. I still wonder if I did the right thing. And you? What would you have done in my place? I returned home in a cab. I didn't want to wait for Denise. I didn't want to be near them for another second. During the ride, I looked out the window without seeing anything. The streets passed blurred. People walked on the sidewalk as if it were a normal day, as if my world hadn't just broken into pieces. When I got home, I locked the door. I sat on the living room sofa and, for the first time in 6 months, I cried. I cried for the son I had lost, for the boy with rosy cheeks who called me mummy and hugged me tight when he was scared, for the young man who swore he would always take care of me. Where had that child gone? At what point did I lose him? I cried until I had no more tears left. Then I got up, washed my face, and started doing what I had to do. I called the bank. I reported the fraudulent credit cards. I blocked my account. I requested a new card that only I could use. I called a locksmith. I asked him to come that same afternoon to change all the locks on the house. I called my cousin Linda, the only family I had left on my mother's side. I told her everything. She cried with me over the phone. "'Cause I need you to come," I told her. "I need you to be here when they return. I don't want to be alone." "I'm on my way, Mary Ann. I'll be there in half an hour." At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the locksmith arrived. An elderly man in blue overalls who worked quickly and silently. He changed all 3 locks. He handed me 6 sets of new keys. "Keep them safe, ma'am," he told me. "And if anyone tries to force the doors, call the police." I paid him and gave him a good tip. At 4 o'clock, Linda arrived with her husband, Michael. They came in with bags of food. "You're not going through this alone," my cousin said, hugging me tight. "We're with you." We sat in the kitchen. I told them everything more calmly. Every detail, every lie, every fake document. Michael shook his head. "That boy let himself be poisoned," he said. "That woman is bad. Since the first time I saw her, I knew she was up to something dark." "And what are you going to do now?" Linda asked. I gave them 3 days to leave. But honestly, cuz, I'd prefer them to leave today. I don't want to see them. I can't see them without... My voice broke. Linda took my hand. "You'll get through this, Mary Ann. You're strong. You always have been." At 6 o'clock in the afternoon, we heard a car outside, the white Jetta. Linda and Michael immediately stood up, positioning themselves beside me, like guards, like protectors. I heard the sound of the key in the lock, trying to get in. They couldn't. Bangs on the door. "Mom, open the door." It was Robert's voice, desperate, furious. I took a deep breath. I walked to the door, but I didn't open it. "I already changed the locks," I said from inside. "I told you you have 3 days to find another place." "Mom, don't be ridiculous. We have to get in. Our things are in there." "Tomorrow you can come for your things, at 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to pack everything and leave it at the entrance, but you are not coming into the house." "This is crazy," Denise yelled. "You can't kick us out like this. I'm going to call the police." "Call them," I said in a calm voice, "and I'll show them the fake documents, the credit cards you opened with my forged signature, the fraudulent loans, and we'll see who ends up arrested." Silence on the other side. "Mum, please." Robert's voice sounded broken. "Let's talk. We can fix this." "There's nothing to fix, Robert. You made your decision when you decided to steal from me, when you decided to believe her instead of your own mother." "I didn't want to. She convinced me. She said it was the best for everyone." "And you believed her?" More silence. "That's the difference between you and me, honey. I would never have done something like that, not even if someone convinced me it was the best, because I know what's right. And you chose the easy way." "Mum, tomorrow at 10 o'clock, your things will be outside. And after that, Robert, I don't want to see you again." Those last words cost me everything. Every letter was a piece of my heart being ripped out. "You can't say that," Robert cried. "I'm your son." "You were my son," I said, and the tears were rolling down my cheeks. The son I raised wouldn't have betrayed me like this. I heard sobs on the other side of the door. "Let's go, Robert," Denise said with a hard voice. "Your mother will regret this." "I won't regret it," I said. "The only thing I regret is opening my door that Sunday, for trusting you." Footsteps walking away, the car starting, the sound fading into the distance. I slumped against the door. Linda hugged me as I cried. "It's over, cuz. It's over." But it wasn't over. It was just beginning. That night, Linda and Michael stayed with me. We had dinner together, food I could barely swallow, conversation that tried to distract me from the pain. But nothing worked, because I had just lost my son. I had lost him months ago, really, since the day Denise entered his life. But now it was official. Robert was no longer my son. I was no longer his mother. At 11 o'clock at night, my cousin and her husband left. They made me promise I would call if I needed anything, that I wouldn't be alone, that they would come back early tomorrow to help me pack Robert's things. I was left alone in the house. My house. I walked through the empty rooms, the living room that smelled like my usual perfume, the kitchen with the phantom scent of hot coffee, my bedroom with the bed where I had slept thousands of nights, and the guest room, the one that had been theirs. I went in. I turned on the light. Clothes thrown on the floor, shoes scattered, perfume bottles on the dresser, photos of the two of them on the walls. All that would be gone tomorrow. I opened the closet. There was the black folder, the fraud documents, the proof of their betrayal. I took them, and instead of putting them away, I put them in a box along with all their belongings. Let them take them. Let them know that I knew. Let them understand that there was no way to hide what they had done. I worked all night, taking out clothes, folding, packing, putting everything into cardboard boxes I had stored in the basement. Expensive shoes, designer clothes, bags, fake Louis Vuittons. Everything bought with stolen money, with fraudulent loans, with my name tarnished at banking institutions. At 6 o'clock in the morning, I was done. 10 boxes at the entrance, clothes hanging on hangers, shoes in bags, everything they had brought into my house, everything they would take back out. I sat on the entrance step to wait. The sun was starting to rise, birds were singing, the world kept spinning as if nothing had happened. At 10 o'clock sharp, the white Jetta arrived. Robert got out alone. Denise stayed in the car with the windows up and dark sunglasses. My son looked terrible. Puffy eyes, wrinkled clothes, 2-day beard. "Mom," he said when he saw me. I didn't answer. I just pointed to the boxes. "Everything is there." He looked at the boxes. Then he looked at me. "Are you really going to do this?" "You did it first, Robert. I'm just protecting myself." "Mom, please give me a chance. We can talk. Can I explain?" "Explain what? How you forged my signature? How you planned to leave me in debt and homeless? How you treated me like trash for months?" "I didn't." "Yes, you did. And the worst part is you knew it. You knew it the whole time and you did nothing to stop her. You chose her over me, your wife of a year, over your mother of a lifetime." Robert's shoulders slumped. "I'm sorry, Mum." "I'm sorry too, my son. I'm sorry that I wasn't enough. I'm sorry that I failed you somehow. I'm sorry that I raised you believing it's okay to betray someone who loves you." "You didn't fail me." His voice broke. "Then I don't understand what happened." Where is the boy who promised to always take care of me? The one who said he would buy me a house with a garden? Tears were rolling down his face. I'm still me, Mum. I shook my head. No, Robert. That boy died, and you killed him. I stood up. I went into the house. I closed the door. I heard him crying on the other side. I heard him loading the boxes one by one. I heard him putting everything in the car. I heard him starting the engine and driving away. And when the silence returned, I sat on the living room floor and cried like I had never cried in my life, because I had won my house, but I had lost my son. The days that followed were the quietest of my life. The house was empty, but not like before. Before the silence was peace. Now it was absence. Linda came every day. She brought me food that I barely tasted. She kept me company during the long afternoons. She let me cry without saying anything. Time heals, Mary Ann, she would tell me. You'll see. But I wasn't sure I wanted to heal, because healing meant forgetting. And I didn't want to forget what they had done to me, not out of resentment, but so I would never be so foolish again. A week after Robert left, I went to the bank to sort out all the mess they had left. The account executive, a young woman with glasses, reviewed my file with a worried face. Mrs. Thompson, you have 3 active credit cards with very high balances and 2 personal loans that are in default. I didn't apply for any of those loans, I explained. They were fraud. I have the proof. I showed her the documents, the forged signatures, everything. She frowned. This is serious. I'm going to file a fraud report, but you need to know that the process can take months, and in the meantime, the debts continue to accrue interest. And what can I do? You can file a formal lawsuit. With this evidence, you have a solid case, but you need an attorney. I left the bank with a weight on my chest. Sue my own son. Put him in jail. I walked to the park. I sat on a bench under a sycamore tree. The purple flowers were falling like soft rain. And then I understood. I wasn't going to sue him. I wasn't going to seek revenge. I wasn't going to destroy his life like he tried to destroy mine, because I wasn't like them. But I wasn't going to rescue him either. For years, I had been Robert's safety net. When he failed the semester in college, I paid the tuition again. When he lost his first job, I lent him money for his expenses. When he crashed the car, I covered the insurance deductible. Always me, always saving him. But that was over. If Robert wanted to learn, he would have to do it alone. He would have to face the consequences of his decisions. He would have to bear the debts that he and Denise had created. I would only clear my name. I went back to the bank the next day with an attorney Linda recommended, a serious gentleman in his 60s who reviewed everything carefully. Mrs. Thompson, you have 2 options, he explained. First, a criminal lawsuit for fraud. Second, a civil lawsuit to disclaim your responsibility for the debts. What's the difference? The criminal one seeks to punish. The civil one seeks to protect you. With the criminal one, your son could go to prison. With the civil one, the debts pass to him and his wife, but there are no criminal charges. I didn't think twice. The civil one, I just want my name to be cleared. Nothing more. The attorney nodded. You are a very noble woman. I'm not noble, I told him. I'm just tired of fighting. The procedures began that same week. Meanwhile, my life slowly returned to something resembling normalcy. I started drinking hot coffee again in the mornings. I started watering my rose bushes again. I started listening to music in the kitchen while I cooked again. The house smelled like cinnamon again. 2 weeks after Robert left, I received a call. It was him. My heart skipped a beat when I saw his name on the screen. I hesitated. my finger over the answer button. Finally, I answered. Hello? Mum. His voice sounded broken, desperate. I need your help. I closed my eyes. What happened, Robert? Denise. She left. She took all the money we had. I'm alone. I have nowhere to live. I was kicked out of the apartment we rented because we didn't pay. Mum, please, I need to come home. Every word hurt me, but something inside me, something new, something that had never been there before, remained firm. No, Robert. What? You can't come back. This house is no longer your house. Mum, please. I have no one else. Denise left me with the debts. I get collection calls every day. I'm going to lose my job. Those are the consequences of your decisions, my son. How can you be so cruel? I'm your son. My voice broke, but I didn't give in. And I am your mother, the mother you tried to rob, the mother you treated like trash. Do you remember? I already apologized. What more do you want me to do? I want you to grow up, Robert. I want you to understand that actions have consequences. I want you to learn to be a real man. Mum, for 32 years I saved you from everything. I protected you from everything. And look at you. You turned into someone who robs his own mother, someone who lets himself be manipulated, someone spineless. The words came out hard but necessary. So no, Robert, I'm not going to save you this time. You're going to have to save yourself. And what if I can't? Then you're going to learn, just like I learned when your father left me alone with a 5-year-old child. No one saved me. I saved myself. Silence on the line. That's easy for you to say, he mumbled. Easy? I let out a bitter laugh. Robert, I sold cornbread to feed you. I worked 12 hours a day to pay for your school. I stayed up late sewing clothes to buy your supplies. And never, never did I ask you to thank me. I only asked you to be a good man. And you failed. Mum, please find help, honey. Find your friends. Find your cousin Linda. Find a job. Find a way. But don't look for me. Are you going to abandon me? The tears were rolling down my cheeks. No, Robert. You abandoned me first. I'm just letting you face what you created. You'll regret this. Maybe, but at least I'll be able to look at myself in the mirror. I hung up. I stayed sitting in the kitchen with the phone in my hand, trembling. Linda arrived half an hour later. She found me crying. What happened, cuz? I told her about the call, about what I had said, about how much it hurt. She hugged me tight. You did the right thing, Marianne. For the first time in your life, you set boundaries. And that's not being cruel. That's being wise. But what if something happens to him? What if he ends up on the street? What if it's not your responsibility? Not anymore. He's 32 years old. It's time for him to learn. That night I wrote a letter that I never sent. Robert, I hope that someday you understand why I did what I did. It wasn't to punish you. It was to save you. Because a son who depends on his mother at 32 years old is not a son. He is a child in a man's body. And I did you no favors by protecting you so much. I made you weak. I made you vulnerable. I made you incapable of facing life. So now I let you go. I let you fall so that you learn to get up. Because I'm not going to be here forever. And when I'm gone, I need to know that you're going to be okay. That you're going to be able to take care of yourself. Even if you hate me now, I hope that someday you understand. With all my love, Mum. I put the letter in my drawer, next to the rusty key I no longer needed to use. Because the real key was never metal. It was the courage to say no. the courage to set boundaries, the courage to let go. 3 months passed. 3 months in which I slowly rebuilt my life, my real life. I painted the walls of the house, the pale yellow that I had always liked, but that Denise said was old lady colour. I hung up my photographs again. The floral curtains returned to the windows. The house was mine again, completely mine. I got a part-time job at a downtown bookstore. I didn't need it for the money. My social security was perfectly enough now that I lived alone. But I needed it for my soul, to get out, to talk to people, to remember that there was a world beyond my pain. Linda kept visiting on Wednesdays. We drank coffee and talked about everything but Robert. Until one Wednesday in July, she arrived with a strange expression. "'Cause I need to tell you something." My heart tightened. "What happened? Is it Robert?" She nodded. "I saw him yesterday, at the market." I sat down slowly in the chair. "How is he?" Linda hesitated. "He's not good, Marianne. He looks bad. Very bad." "How bad?" "Thin, gaunt, wearing old clothes. He was buying the cheapest things. Beans, rice, nothing else." I felt something tighten in my chest. "Did he talk to you?" "Yes. He asked about you. I told him you were fine." "And him?" He burst into tears right there, in the middle of the market. The tears began to sting my eyes. "Did he tell you anything else?" "He told me Denise left him with all the debts, that she left with another man, one with real money, that she only used him to try to steal your house, that when she saw the plan failed, she abandoned him." I closed my eyes. "And where is he living?" "In a rented room, a small one in the industrial area. He told me he lost his job because the collection calls came to the office all day, that he got something at a warehouse, lifting boxes, 12 hours a day." My son, my Robert, lifting boxes. "Did he ask you for money?" I asked. "No, I offered it, but he refused it. He said he had to learn to manage on his own, that his mum was right." The tears were rolling freely now. "'Cause why are you crying? Wasn't that what you wanted? For him to learn?" "Yes," I whispered, "but I didn't think it would hurt so much to see him fall." Linda took my hand. "Do you want me to go look for him? Do you want to talk to him?" I shook my head. "Not yet. He's not ready yet, and neither am I." But the news kept coming, through my cousin, through acquaintances, through the neighborhood that talks and comments on everything. Robert had lost weight. 30 pounds, they said. His face looked sunken. He walked with his shoulders slumped. He was no longer the arrogant man who had kicked me out of my own house. He was a broken man. The debts pursued him. The banks had started legal proceedings. My attorney had managed to unlink my name. But now everything fell on Robert. More than $200,000 in cards and loans. Denise had disappeared. The rumor was that she was in Cancun with a businessman, living the life she had wanted to build with my money, with my house. But she had failed, and now she was with another one, doing the same thing. Some people are born with a hole that never gets filled, and Denise was one of them. In September, 6 months after they left, I received another call from Robert. This time I answered on the first ring. "Hello? Mum?" His voice sounded different, softer, more humble. "I know you don't want to talk to me. I know I don't have the right, but I needed to tell you something." "Tell me. You were right. About everything. I was a fool. A coward. A bad son." I didn't say anything. I just listened. Denise left me on the street. She took even the things I had bought before I met her. My clothes, my books, everything. She left me with the debts and a letter where she said I was too weak to be a real man. A bitter laugh escaped his throat. You know what the saddest thing is, Mum? You're right. I am weak. I always was. And you told me, but I didn't want to listen. Robert. No. Let me finish. Please. He took a deep breath. These months have been the worst of my life. I don't have money. I can barely pay for my room. I eat once a day. I work 12 hours loading boxes in a warehouse that smells like damp. I come home so tired that I fall asleep with my clothes on. Every word was a dagger in my heart. The collectors call me every day. They threaten me with lawsuits, with garnishments, with jail. And I have no way to pay. I have nothing. Why are you telling me this? I asked with a trembling voice. Because I want you to know that I understood. I understood what you wanted to teach me, that life doesn't forgive, that decisions have consequences, that you can't betray someone who loves you and expect everything to be okay. Silence. I'm not asking you to help me, Mum. I'm not asking for money or to let me come back. I just want you to know that I'm sorry. I really am. Robert, you don't have to say anything. Just thank you for answering. Thank you for listening to me. He hung up before I could respond. I stayed sitting there with the phone in my hand, crying. I didn't sleep that night. All night I thought about my son, about his broken voice, about his destroyed life. Was this what I wanted? To see him suffer so much? No, but it wasn't my responsibility to save him either. Life, that cruel but fair teacher, was making him pay for everything he did to us, in its own way, in its own time. Denise had used and discarded him just as he had discarded me. The debts pursued him just as he pursued my money. Loneliness consumed him just as it consumed me when he kicked me out of my house. Life always collects its debts, sometimes with interest. One afternoon in October, 7 months after everything, I was in the garden watering my roses when I heard a knock at the door. I opened it. It was Robert, but not the arrogant Robert from before, not the man in a suit who had yelled at me. He was a thin man, with an unkempt beard, worn clothes. He had deep, dark circles under his eyes, hands dirty from work. "Mom," he said, and his voice broke immediately. "I'm not here to ask you for anything. I just came to bring you this." He held out an envelope. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside were $30 in wrinkled bills. "It's all I could save this month," he said. "I know I owe you much more. I know I can never repay you for everything we did, but I want to try, even if it takes me my whole life." I looked him in the eyes, and for the first time in months, I saw my real son, not the manipulated man, not the thief, not the traitor. I saw the child who once promised to take care of me, the child who was finally trying to grow up. "I don't want your money, Robert. But Mum, keep it. Use it to eat, to pay for your room, to get out of debt." He shook his head, tears rolling down his dirty face. "I don't deserve your forgiveness." "No," I said firmly. "You don't deserve it. Not yet. But someday, maybe, when you are the man you should have always been, that day we will talk." He nodded. He wiped his tears with his sleeve. "I love you, Mum. I always loved you, even though I was an idiot. I love you too, my son. That's why I let you fall, so you would learn to fly." I closed the door softly. I heard him crying on the other side for a long minute. then his footsteps walking away. I sat on the living room sofa with the $30 in my hand, and I smiled, because life had given Robert exactly what he deserved. Pain, loneliness, consequences, but also something more important, a chance for redemption, to be better, to grow. And no one had given him that opportunity. He had earned it, with suffering, with humility, with work. Justice had arrived, not with my revenge, but with the natural balance of life. 2 years have passed since that afternoon at the notary office. 2 years since I recovered my house, my dignity, my life. Today I am 53 years old, my hair is grayer, some more wrinkles on my forehead, but also something I didn't have before. Peace, true peace, the kind that comes from knowing who you are and what you deserve. I still live in my house in the San Gabriel neighborhood. Now the walls are yellow, that soft yellow that I always liked, and the windows have floral curtains. In the garden, my roses are blooming more beautifully than ever, as if they knew there is finally tranquility in this place. I work part-time at the downtown bookstore 3 times a week, not out of necessity, but because I like it. I like recommending books. I like talking to the customers. I like feeling useful. Linda still visits me on Wednesdays. We drink coffee and talk about everything, about her family, about the news, about life. And sometimes, only sometimes, we talk about Robert. Because yes, Robert is still in my life, but in a different way. After that afternoon when he brought me the $30, he kept coming. Once a month. Always punctual. Always with an envelope of money that I never accept, but that he insists on bringing. It's for my dignity, Mum, he tells me, not for yours. And I understand him. At first, our conversations were short, awkward. He would tell me about his work at the warehouse. I would tell him about the bookstore. Nothing deep, nothing painful. But little by little, the wounds began to heal. 6 months ago, Robert got a better job. At a logistics company. Nothing extraordinary, but better than loading boxes. He rented a bigger apartment. He started paying off his debts, little by little. He tells me about it with pride. And I listen with a full heart. Because my son's growing up. He is finally growing up. 3 months ago, he asked me if he could come for dinner on a Sunday. Only if you want, Mum. I don't feel entitled to ask, but I miss your turkey casserole. I smiled. Come next Sunday, at 2 o'clock. He arrived on time, with flowers, yellow roses. I know they're your favorite, he said shyly. We ate together at the dining room table, the same table where Denise once counted the bills from my Social Security, the same table where everything broke. But now it was different. Robert ate slowly, savoring, thanking me for every bite. Mum, he said when we finished, there's something I need to tell you. My heart tightened. Tell me, honey. I've been going to therapy for 4 months now. I looked at him, surprised. Therapy? He nodded. I needed to understand how I got to do what I did, how I could betray you like that, and my therapist helped me see a lot of things. He wiped his eyes with the napkin. He helped me see that I was always weak, that I always looked for someone else to tell me what to do. First you, then Denise. I never learned to be myself, to make my own decisions, to be responsible. Robert. And he helped me understand something more important, that you didn't fail me. I failed you, by not growing up, by not maturing, by letting myself be manipulated so easily. Tears were rolling down his face. I also understood that Denise wasn't bad just because. She was broken, like me. looking to fill a void with material things, with lies, with betrayals. But the difference is that she is never going to change, and I can. I got up from my chair and hugged him. He sobbed on my shoulder like when he was a child. Forgive me, Mum. Please, forgive me. I already forgave you, honey. A long time ago. Really? Really? Because I see that you are trying, that you are growing, and that is the only thing I ever wanted for you. Since that day, Robert comes over for lunch every Sunday. He doesn't live with me. He doesn't ask me for money. He doesn't expect me to rescue him. He just comes to talk, to be together, to rebuild what was broken. And I receive him with love, but also with boundaries. Because I learned something important in these 2 years. Loving doesn't mean allowing. Loving also means knowing when to say no, when to let the other person face their consequences, when to let go. A week ago, Robert told me he finished paying the last debt. I don't owe anyone anything anymore, Mum. Well, except you. I owe you everything. You don't owe me anything, honey. Yes, I do. I owe you an apology that will never be enough. I owe you the years of peace that I took away. I owe you the respect that I didn't give you. Then pay me by being a good man, by being honest, by being strong. That is the only debt I want you to settle. He smiled, a sad but hopeful smile. I'll try, Mum. I'll try every day. Today, as I write this in my journal, a habit I picked up after everything that happened, I look out the window and see my yellow roses swaying in the wind, and I think about everything I lived through, the pain, the betrayal, the loneliness, the tears. But I also think about what I gained. I gained my house. I gained my dignity. I gained my peace. And above all, I gained something I never had before. The certainty that I can be alone without being empty, that I don't need anyone to be complete, that my worth does not depend on how much others love me, but on how much I love myself. If I could talk to the Mary Ann of 2 years ago, that scared woman who allowed herself to be trampled in her own house, I would tell her this. Don't be afraid to defend yourself. Don't be afraid to set boundaries. Don't be afraid to be alone, because loneliness with dignity is better than company with humiliation. I would tell her that it is okay to love a son, but it is also okay not to let yourself be destroyed by him. That it is okay to be a mother, but it is also okay to be a woman, to be a person, to be the owner of your own life. And I would tell her that forgiveness does not mean forgetting, that you can forgive and still maintain distance, that you can love and still protect yourself. Because love without limits is not love. It is self-destruction. Today, at 53 years old, I know who I am. I am Mary Ann Thompson, a woman who worked 30 years to have a roof of her own, a mother who loved so much that she almost lost herself, a survivor who learned to defend herself when it hurt the most. And if my story can help a single woman open her eyes, set boundaries, value herself, then everything I suffered will have been worth it. Because sometimes mothers also need to learn to let go, to let our children fall, so that they can learn to get up. And even if it hurts like 1,000 daggers plunging into the heart, it is the only way for them to truly grow. Life taught me that justice doesn't always arrive quickly, but it arrives with time, with patience, with that perfect balance that only the universe knows how to give. Denise is still out there, I suppose, looking for her next victim, living her empty life of material things and a hollow heart. And Robert is here, fighting, growing, becoming the man he should have always been. Will we ever be like we were before? No, never. Because before I was blind and he was a child. Now I see clearly and he is a man. And that is a much more honest, much more real relationship. I close my journal and put it away in the same drawer where I once kept that rusty key, the key that represented my last defense, the key to a chest I never had to open, because the real weapon was always my voice, my dignity, my courage to say no. I look at the clock. It is 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Robert will arrive soon for Sunday dinner. I get up and go to the kitchen to prepare the turkey casserole he likes so much. And as I cook, I smile, because my house smells like cinnamon again, because my walls are yellow again, because my heart beats peacefully again, and because I learned the most important lesson life can teach, that you can't save anyone who doesn't want to save themselves. But you can save yourself, and that, in the end, is the only thing that really matters. Thank you for listening to me until the end. If this story touched your heart, subscribe and turn on notifications to hear more stories of women who transformed their pain into wisdom. Every day, a woman, a life lesson. Share this story with someone you love. Sometimes a story like this can change an entire day. God bless you, and until next time.